SuperTalk Mississippi media production. Middays with Gerard Gibbert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibbert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibbert here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday Super Talk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibbert, and I am on location at the Mississippi Trademark for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Will East, back in the Super Talk headquarters studio, we'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Will.
It's a chilly one again, and I think we got a little wet stuff coming into my neck of the woods.
Man, oh man, the social media is full of all of the information concerning what looks like wintry weather entering the Magnolia State this weekend, maybe getting kicked off, late Friday into Saturday. But it's one of those deals where you see maps of the region, the South, that show the pink and the blue, and you know that that's wintry stuff. And it looks like that line between the green, the pink, and the blue is right about on top of where our headquarters is. So it kind of drapes over I-20. That seems to be the line of demarcation. Everything above that, expect some wintry weather. I mean, did I see this right, Will? Like 8-10 inches of snow in North Mississippi? Is that what they're predicting?
I've heard that. I've heard, it might be less, it might be more. You don't know. Everybody, weather people have their own opinions sometimes, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong.
Yep.
But either way, Mississippi is never prepared for it.
That's right.
Expect the grocery stores to be empty of milk. And I don't know why people choose milk and bread, but that's what we're going with.
I think people buy milk and bread that don't actually consume milk and bread. It's just, I don't know why. That's just how we roll here. You're right. That could be the case. And, of course, there'll be a run on the gas stations. Make sure you got plenty of gasoline as well. So, but it's that time of year. Don't know what's going to happen exactly as we approach the weekend. We'll get more definitive forecasting information. In the meantime, down there in Miami, the Indiana Hoosiers are now college football's king, national champions. The game was actually pretty good. I think a lot of people expected a blowout, right? That Indiana just was so strong as they plowed through the playoffs that they were going to roll over Miami, but not so fast. I honestly, having watched Miami in person in the Sugar Bowl, Miami's strong, man. And did I see somewhere that, like, the average age of a person, a player on Miami's teams, like 24? They're almost at the same age as the professional NFL football players are. They've all this NIL and portals and moving around and giving you extra years and stuff. Really crazy. But good game. Congratulations to Indiana. Now, is that their first national championship?
They are historically one of the worst college football teams of all time. I don't know if the exact number, but they're like bottom 10% of all time. They're just terrible. It's a basketball school,
Exactly.
Bobby Knight and all that.
Oh, yeah. And I think with respect to their conference, the Big Ten, they fall at the bottom of the pack of the entire Big Ten Conference in the sport of football in terms of their overall record historically as a member of the Big Ten Conference. So if this just doesn't tell you that the sport of college football, like it or not, has been significantly disrupted with NIL, the portal, etc. I don't know what else you need to see, because when you get a team like Miami that essentially comes out of nowhere and takes the show, takes on the crown, and that is largely the result, I think, of paying players big sums of money, of the NIL program, of this wide-open Wild West portal program. So no doubt. It's my understanding that it's tech billionaire Mark Cuban is the primary donor to the Indiana program. He a graduate, and of course, he is just pocket change for someone of his wealth to throw it there. I think I've shared before that I was actually a classmate of Mark Cuban's back in 1986, May of 1986 to be exact, when he had just formed his company the same time I did mine. And the IBM Corporation required you to go to school, no kidding, for a week to learn how to sell IBM personal computers. And there was also a week of service school to learn how to fix IBM personal computers. And Cuban and I happened to be in a class of about 10 over there in Atlanta, where IBM had a lot of its operations concerning the personal computers. He did a little better than the rest of us in the class. But, you could tell back then, Will, just from his communication with the instructors, this guy's way smarter. And not just about PCs. That wasn't a big deal. But you could just tell he was already, his gears were grinding. I was just trying to figure out how to sell computers and put food on the table, and he was thinking about things like what he ultimately invented, broadcast.com. That's something that connects to us at SuperTalk, because that was the technology that allows the transmission, the broadcast of live radio through the internet. That's what he invented, and that's what made him a billionaire. Now, of course, he's on Shark Tank and somewhat politically active as well. Interesting character, interesting figure. I just talk about him because my understanding is he's the one that threw a bunch of money in the Indiana program. That's all it took. And here they are, national champions.
Yeah,
wow.
That's the new world that we live in. Vanderbilt's got about 3 donors that made that program, again, a bottom dweller, made them a competitor this year. So that's what it is.
Well, if you think about through the years, the number of graduates all these fine universities churn out, and so many of them go on to be extremely successful, that's just not a big deal in the scheme of things because you're talking about a small number of people that you're compensating, the football team, right? So you got, 85 or so, I think, officially on scholarship, if I'm not mistaken, and, maybe 20 of those are getting paid. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing here, but everybody knows the high-profile players, and they're getting paid. But when you add that up, that's just not a lot of money for the sort of wealth these people have. And so it's become a game of who can outspend the others.
And there's a return on investment, too, for the university, because I guarantee you Indiana will see an enrollment increase because of this.
100%. And you're so right about that. Got curious and started down a rabbit hole in researching Alabama through the years where Saban was there and what that meant to the University of Alabama, to the state of Alabama, to Tuscaloosa. It's incredible. I mean, what winning does. People like to go sit in the stands and win. They sort of live vicariously. That's part of the entertainment. That's fine, and they spend their money. You know that when the programs are winning, you're a whole lot more likely, for example, to go buy merchandise because you want to go boast about it and wear those colors and those logos and stuff. I mean, I admit, went to the Sugar Bowl, went to the Fiesta Bowl, and, of course, my wife and I, we sprung for a fair amount of merchandise. You got to have something to, remember the experience. That's just an example of, to your point, of when winning generates a lot of revenue for these programs. Today, by the way, January the 20th, that marks exactly 1 year that the president took office. This is the anniversary of his first year of his second term in office, and a lot of information about his first year in office that is getting some attention. Some of the news sources reporting on that. Sort of interesting where all that's going. Of course, he's got some key legislation that came out. And the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a major accomplishment, signed into law on July 4th, 2025. I think most people would agree, I certainly would, that shutting down the border and just seeing the dramatic change and just in our studio there, Will, with the TVs on all the time. I always have the Business Channel on. It seems like every day during the Biden administration, we would see images of the border just jam-packed with people flowing across it. That's not even a story anymore. That's been completely shut down. I'd give the president a grade of A+ on that. That's probably the best thing he did since he's been in office, was just shut down the border and stop the bleeding. Plus, some 2 million people, it's reported, have self-deported or been deported by ICE. 2 million. The question is, how many are here? It would be a big guess, somewhere between 15 and 30 million. We're coming right back from the Capital Connect, the Mississippi Business Alliance at the Mississippi Trade Mart.
Hello, my name is John.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
They're rolling. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart. We're here for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Coming up at 10:50, we'll be talking to Lex Taylor, Chairman and CEO of Taylor Group, also the Vice Chair of the Mississippi Business Alliance. We'll kick off Hour 2 of Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart with Commissioner Andy Gibson. He, of course, is the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. We'll visit with Amy Tate, Senior State Director, Government and Community Relations at the Tennessee Valley Authority, board member, Mississippi Business Alliance. At 11:50, Courtney Taylor, Executive Director of Accelerate Mississippi at 12:05. And then we'll wrap things up today with John McKay, President and CEO of the Mississippi Business Alliance. So, lots of folks running around here, Will. I think they've got the governor, lieutenant governor, and Speaker of the House scheduled to, as is usually the case, scheduled to address the attendees here at the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. And, of course, we're just a couple miles away from the Capitol, where they'll be gaveling in again. What a session it has been in a short period of time already. Yesterday, as you likely know by now, we talked about it, but it's worth discussing again, is that Governor Tate Reeves opted Mississippi into the federal school choice voucher program. Let's be clear, this is a federal program, completely separate, distinct, and different from the sweeping school choice legislation which narrowly passed the Mississippi House last week. That would be known as HB 2. This is something that was part of the One Big Beautiful Bill, also known now as the Families First Tax Cuts Act. Governor Tate Reeves opted Mississippi into that. A lot of confusion out there, Will, about this. Because this is a federal program, didn't actually require the legislature to take any action for Mississippi to participate. Could be done simply with an executive order from the governor's office. I've seen just out on social media, there's a lot of confusion about that. No public state dollars are included in this program. So in discussions we've had on the program, both on our show and on the morning show with Richard Cross, both the lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House Jason White, indicated shortly after the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed last July 4th that they looked favorably upon this legislation. And there's a good article that you can take a look at on the Super Talk Mississippi website that was authored by Caleb Sailors. It just published yesterday. So this is a program that allows individuals to donate up to $1,700 to approved scholarship granting organizations, also known as SGOs. So here's the way it works. This has nothing to do with the state taxes or state funds. As a taxpayer, you can donate up to $1,700 to one of these SGOs. Now, still waiting on some details on what those would look like in the state of Mississippi. That likely would be something coming from the governor's office, the definition and the qualifications to operate as a scholarship granting organization in the state of Mississippi. And you could donate your funds to one of these SGOs, and then they dole out scholarships to families for students. The law, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, this provision of the law, restricts those scholarships to families earning up to 300% of the area median gross income. There's a lot of confusion about this as well, Will, that you're seeing people who oppose school choice in Mississippi say, well, this is only going to be for the rich people. And then you're seeing others say, well, this is only going to be for the poor people. There's no help for the middle class. And honestly, both are wrong. Let's talk about the federal legislation, because that's what we were talking about earlier. The median gross income is totally different than the federal poverty level. Okay, so the federal poverty level, 100% of the federal poverty level is a national standard. There are some slight changes to it in a couple of states that just have a different economic status. I think Hawaii is maybe one of those where it's adjusted slightly upward, but in general, most states adhere to the same standard. It's about $15,000 and some change, 100% of the federal poverty level for an individual. This program deals with the median gross income, household gross income. So the median household gross income in the state of Mississippi is about $59,000. That's totally different than the 100% of the federal poverty level. Okay, so the way this program works is, even though the $59,000 is the state's median household income, those who would be eligible for these scholarships must have a median household income that's no greater than 300% of the median household income in their area. In other words, a carved up sort of definitive community, more localized area within the state, because as you can imagine, even though the state's median household income is $59,000, that varies from area to area of the state. So it's specific to that. And 300% of that figure is $177,000. So I wouldn't exactly say that those are poor households. So this does, in fact, capture the middle class. So from zero up to $177,000. That's a bunch of households in the state of Mississippi. And by the way, median simply means middle. That means that half of the households are below that, half are above it. That's different from mean. That's the average. That's a different figure, by the way, and that's a different calculation. So, bottom line is, a whole bunch of families in the state of Mississippi, the vast majority, honestly, would be eligible for scholarships that the scholarship granting organization would provide, and those rules are yet to be published as well, those policies, and those would have to, of course, conform to the federal law. But it gives a fair amount of latitude to the scholarship granting organizations. Again, the big qualification is only families whose median income is below 300% of the area median income. So here's the thing, Will. So, a lot of the objection to school choice is, wow, you're diverting public dollars from the public schools to private schools, talking about the state, the Magnolia student accounts that are provided for in HB2, the state legislation. Came out of the House, it passed the House, and now is in the Senate waiting action. But the complaint is you're taking money out of the public schools and you're moving that to private schools. Well, this would too. And here's how. Because if a family received one of these scholarships through this federal program and they said, hey, look, I'm going to disenroll from the public school and I'm going to enroll in a private school, well, the state money's not following the child, but the public school's losing the money associated with that child. So this makes it, their argument, the opponents I'm talking about, even more difficult. And I guess my question would be for them is, well, do you oppose the president's policy here? Because this is no doubt, this is specifically his policy, his desire. It was included in the legislation that was passed by the House and the Senate on party lines, talking about the U.S. House and Senate, and this is a key provision. I would not be surprised to see that figure move upward. Now, that $1,700, just keep in mind, that's not the amount that goes to the family. That's the amount that a taxpayer can donate and receive a tax credit, a federal tax credit. You give them $1,700, you get to take $1,700 off your taxes. So all that money is essentially accumulated and managed by the scholarship granting organization. They could give out scholarships in any amount they want, honestly. But they rely on private donations that receive a tax credit. You could actually say, yeah, this is public dollars going to private schools because the taxpayer is getting a credit off their public money, their tax payments to the federal government, not the state. The point here is this really complicates things even further with respect to this school choice issue. Randy in Starkville asked, in layman's vernacular, why did the market open so low today and continues to be selling off? I'll handle that on the other side of the break here from the Mississippi Trademark for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect.
From the CMO.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibbert on Super Talk Mississippi.
Well, Will's at the controls with the music there because it's the great Tom Petty. Get a healthy dose of that with Will is running the show. Appreciate that, Will. Great tune bumping us into this segment. We're at the Mississippi Trademark for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. So before we went to break, we had a question on the C Spire text line, Randy in Starkville. In layman's vernacular, why did the market open so low today? Yeah, the futures, Randy, actually were down significantly yesterday. Markets closed for the MLK holiday, and they stayed down, and it's 100% because markets, investors do not like trade wars. So when the president announced over the weekend in an effort to coerce the EU to get behind his plan to acquire Greenland, the market sold off because he said, you know what, if you don't play here, I'm going to put big-time tariffs on you. Markets just don't like that. It's more about the uncertainty than it is the actual cost of the tariffs. And just that sort of volatility just rattles investors. They don't like it, and they start immediately selling off. So we're not really sure where that goes. A lot of people would say, hey, this is a great time to buy. This will be short term. This will be resolved. And you saw the same thing, remember, when the president began imposing tariffs earlier. remember the one big day, Will, I can't remember what he called it. There was a name for it when he came out and announced just a slew of tariffs at a big White House conference and so forth. And the markets sold off a lot. And then they snapped back. And I think the same thing will happen here. I caught a lengthy interview. Of course, they're at the World Economic Forum over there in Davos right now, and the president is really dominating all the discussion. This is when all the leaders of the EU and the West in general gather up and talk about their joint economic strategies and plans and vision. The president's sort of dominating the discussion with this Greenland stuff and his overall economic plans, and I think is illustrating and conveying to the world that America's on the top of the heap, as it should be from an economic perspective. But that's got investors rattled, and they're selling off both really across all the indexes. It was down a lot more than it is now. Last I checked, let's see, the Dow was down about 500 points. 550. The NASDAQ 296. The Dow earlier in the session was down over 700, and the NASDAQ over 450. So just uncertainty, man. It rattles them. And a lot of times it's kind of an excuse. Hey, let's go sell it off, drag the price down, we'll jump back in and then ride it back up and make some profit. No doubt the algorithms like to do that as well. I caught an interview with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this morning on the Business Channel. Lengthy interview on site in Davos. And so much to unpack from that interview, but man, his optimism about the nation's economy was off the chart. But that did not influence markets, unfortunately. They're, again, way more concerned about the tariff situation and just the overall chaos that this talk about Greenland is creating, and just that uncertainty. But man, he was talking as much as 7 to 8% GDP growth. That is astronomical. I mean, that would be massive when you consider that looks like last year is going to come in at about 2.5, 2.6, though we're waiting on the fourth quarter to be announced, and it looks like the fourth quarter is coming in at about 4%. So we're certainly trending upward and in the right direction, which is really good. He also said, this caught my attention, that, of course, in all the factors that he cited that will contribute to GDP growth, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it's both its business tax provisions, mainly the immediate expensing, something super important to those gathered here today at Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect, because this organization does represent the industry and the business community. And they will want to take advantage of the immediate expensing provisions. I've said earlier on when this bill was being negotiated before it passed, that by far would do more positive good for our economy than anything else. Not to discount the value of people having more money in their pocket through the deductibility of the premium portion of overtime, of tip income, of of automobile interest on new domestic vehicles. Yeah, that puts more money in the pocket, higher standard deduction for seniors as well, and they spend more money. Consumption is a big thing in our economy, no doubt. But businesses, this is what's driving GDP, is businesses are spending like crazy, especially with this artificial intelligence explosion. They're spending so much on capital equipment, and that is driving GDP growth. But for the fiscal year 2026, we generated a deficit of about $1.8 trillion at the federal level. Now, the deficit and its nominal value is certainly important, but what's even more important and what investors tune into more than anything else, especially the bond markets, is the ratio of the deficit to our gross domestic product. So the deficit came in at $1.8 trillion, and that represented a ratio of about 5.9%. which is an improvement over the prior year, over 2024, Joe Biden's last year in the White House, where we also produced a $1.8 trillion deficit. But that represented a 6.4% ratio to our GDP. So from 6.4 in Joe Biden's last year to 5.9 in President Trump's first year, that's an improvement of the ratio of our deficit to GDP. And that's not because our deficit went down, it's because our GDP went up. So if the Treasury Secretary this morning said the goal is to get that to 3% by the end of the president's term. 3%. Now, that's not going to come, I believe, from a reduction in deficits. We're still going to spend a whole lot more money than we take in. I see $2 trillion deficits for as far as the eye can see. But what I do expect is a significant bump in GDP, and that will bring the ratio down. That's good for interest rates. What does that mean? It's good for interest rates. It's super good for inflation, which is now sitting at about 2.7%. That means there's more supply than demand, or we're a lot closer of supply and demand, and that has a tendency to cool inflation. So this is all good stuff, good news. I hope the Treasury Secretary is right. I mean, it would be just monumental if we achieved a 7 to 8% GDP growth. That would just take the world by storm, no doubt about it. So hopefully that was a decent, understandable explanation of what's going on there with respect to the GDP deficits, et cetera. On the C Spire text line, Gerard has enough money to fund the Ole Miss team by himself. It won't be going for that purpose. I can tell you that. So I do my part, but not in that respect. Paula Meridian says ravioli is up about 30 cents a can. Yeah, I think the mistake in the expectation here, Will, is that so many people expect the price of the goods they typically buy to decline to the 2019 pre-COVID levels, and that's just simply not going to happen. That the best we can hope for is that prices don't rise nearly as precipitously, right? And that's happening with inflation down to the 2.7%. That means prices are still rising 2.7%. Well, that's a whole heck of a lot better than 9%. And a lot of that's driven by deregulation. That's one thing that gets left out of the conversation a lot. We talk a lot about tax policy. That's a lot easier to kind of wrap your arms around. But deregulation is a huge thing. And that's a problem. Thomas in Greenwood says they campaign on lower prices. It's a mistake because stuff doesn't go down. Now, the distinction is globally traded commodities, such as oil. No doubt, that's down. Gas is down. That's just statistical, mathematical fact. And that is also driving the cost of many other products down as well, or it's moderating their increases. But food products are an example of those which are, and we'll be talking to the commissioner about that after the top of the hour break. But food prices are volatile and all over the place. Some are up quite a bit, beef, coffee. Some are down, eggs, for example, because those are globally traded commodities that are subject to the laws of supply and demand. There is some regulatory component of those costs, no doubt, and this president is certainly a fan of deregulation, and I think that'll have a greater positive impact on our economy than anything else. And then we got the big refunds coming up, and people are going to have a lot more money to go spend, and that should provide an economic boost, which would also drive GDP growth. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break right now. When we come back, we've got Lex Taylor. He's the vice chair of the Mississippi Business Alliance. We're at the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect at the Mississippi Trade Mart. Stay with us.
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibbert.
All right, we are back
on Super Talk Mississippi.
Middays from the Element Well studio that has been relocated today to the Mississippi Trademark for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Collect. We're pleased to welcome now Lex Taylor, Chairman and CEO of the Taylor Group and Vice Chair of the Mississippi Business Alliance. Lex, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, John. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. So this is kind of a new deal in that we've got this, as you call it, the culmination of three organizations that have come together to form the Mississippi Business Alliance. BIPEC, Mississippi Economic Council, Mississippi Manufacturers Association.
That's right. It is exciting. This is D-Day. We've been planning this literally for a couple of years, but it all started gelling to the extent that where we are today, about three to 4 months ago. And now here we are.
Yeah.
And it has been smooth. I'm here to report no cat fighting among staff, vying for office space. Everybody's been civil and continuing on with the association as it blends. And so we're excited about today.
Yeah. Well, you know, I interviewed all three of the heads of those separate organizations when they came on the program and announced it. Do you think it made sense? It sure seems like it does to me.
It does. In the age of merger and acquisition, these three associations, we're seeing some stress. Broad membership gets better but gets smaller. And so basically they all had one customer. And that's the Capitol Hill up there.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Too many going after one thing, that gets to be some conflict going on. We've taken the business approach, as we should have, and made this, I call it a merger, to the extent of putting these assets together to focus better with our legislature, with our leadership, letting them know the voice of business. And so here we are.
Yeah, and as you well know, Lex, from your business experience there's value in scale.
Yeah, exactly. And we have now gotten bigger even though we're one.
Right.
Think about that concept just a minute. But we are, and so resources are more efficiently utilized. The voice is one. It's one thing I think over the years our leadership at the Capitol and the legislature have been asking for that one voice. They need that direction. They don't need conflict if we're looking for a bill or something that's coming up, a discussion in committee. Now we are focused on that one voice to give them direction and guidance and influence, frankly.
Sure. Makes sense. What are some priorities that you can share with us that the Mississippi Business Alliance has for our legislature this year?
Yeah, certainly the main issues that they are involved in right now, you will hear the governor today talk about it. You'll hear some of the other leadership talking about it today, and that's certainly continuation of the workforce development. We've got a state of great natural resources, just super natural resources. We've got a work ethic in this state comparatively to our neighbors. That's better. We need training. We need training to bring the outside. We're doing well with our industries and our businesses internally, but we need to train more so that we can entice more industry or business of any sort from outside to come into this state. So that's certainly one of the big focuses in that regard.
And the good news there, I think, Lex, is that we're seeing more collaboration between industry and our educational institutions and some of these other organizations as well. We're going to be talking to Courtney Taylor later in the program, Executive Director of Accelerate Mississippi. So it feels like they're working together a lot better than they have historically.
They have, and she's going to see a more focus in that with our newly instituted, if you will, Work Future program that's going to come out of the Mississippi Business Alliance that is geared toward pulling all that together. Private need, public training and focus, and hopefully drill into that very thing.
Yeah.
The effort is to put our citizens to work.
Sure.
If they're willing to, there are opportunities,
sure,
and they will have the training available.
Yeah, and the trades in particular. I've been reading a lot of reports about the unbelievable demand, and the compensation. Hearing about electricians in Texas making $250,000 a year.
It's incredible, and it's there, and you can do it without a lot of student loan of debt on you when you get into the work environment, and all those will go to make a good thing for our future.
That's awesome. So quickly, you got the governor, lieutenant governor, and speakers scheduled to address the group today, right?
They are, and we're excited to hear them, and hopefully they'll be excited to see this one focus.
Yeah, I think so. Lex Taylor, he's the chairman and CEO of the Taylor Group, Great Mississippi Company, vice chair of Mississippi Business Alliance. Thanks for coming on, Lex.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You bet. Folks, we're stepping aside for Fox News and Super Talk News. When we come back, we've got the Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, Andy Gibson. Stay with us.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are at the Mississippi Trademark for Mississippi Business Alliance's Capital Connect. Essentially, that's when the business community gets a little closer and connected to the lawmakers, the legislative community, and our state leaders. They come all together and talk about their needs and hopefully get some attention from our legislators, our lawmakers, to do things that help the business community in the great state of Mississippi. Speaking of which, it's the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, Commissioner Andy Gibson. Commissioner, always good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Great to be here, Gerard. Always good to be with you. Appreciate y'all coming over to our place today.
Absolutely. So the Mississippi Business Alliance, as you know, is a newly formed organization that is a combination, a merger, if you will, of three prior organizations, the Mississippi Economic Council, BIPEC, and the Mississippi Manufacturing Association. So they've all come together. We just talked to Lex Taylor. He, of course, is vice chair of the Mississippi Business Alliance and was on the Mississippi Economic Council board for many years. Great Mississippi industry, and he's a great business leader. And he said it was done without any conflict, without any contention. Sometimes that can be a problem when you put three organizations together. So that's all good news. But they're here talking about what we can do to boost the economy of the state of Mississippi. Now, agriculture, an area where you're heavily involved, of course, as our commissioner, is our largest industry. Within that, poultry is the largest segment of that industry. But, man, they're facing some pretty serious problems in Mississippi right now.
Our farmers are facing problems all over America, and it's really not so much our poultry farmers, but it is our row crop producers, the folks who are growing soybeans and cotton and corn. The trade pressures that we've talked about on your show many times have not let up. China is outsourcing all of its product now from, for example, soybeans from Brazil that's now outproducing America in terms of the amount of beans being produced. They can triple crop down there, and those pressures are not going away. Our president is doing a great job trying to and working to negotiate new deals. We have a deal with China now, but it's basically going to hold us where we've always been, and that's welcome news. But we have to think about the future. For our row crop producers, what are we doing today? What can we change differently today for the future tomorrow? And one of the things that I'd like to see us do is bring back that processing of all our products right back here to Mississippi. In the 1980s, due to the cheap labor overseas, a lot of our our bread and butter processing, things like textile mills, cotton processing, soybeans, other processors went overseas for cheap labor. And I think we're living in a day now when modern technology is giving us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring those industries back here. If they can make a robot to build a machine or a car in Massachusetts, they can design one that can weave cotton in Mississippi. And I think value-added integration, standing up those processors back here in our state, is how we take what's already our largest sector and we double it or we triple it. I'll give you one example for the poultry industry. I was in one plant. I've told this story so many times. One processing plant in Carthage, Mississippi, chicken. They were processing 400,000 chickens a day. 2 million birds a week, and 60% of that's going to Chick-fil-A, all right? So you're meeting local consumer demand instead of depending on foreign exports and foreign markets that are so uncertain these days. And I think finding ways to incentivize and bring back that kind of manufacturing is what we need to be focused on as we look to the future, 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, and I heard this morning, it's a great point as well, and though that may not create just a whole bunch of jobs, it would create economic activity.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of jobs associated with building those factories and maintaining those factories. And I totally agree with you. I think you would probably agree that the factory of the future is not one that's going to have people shoulder to shoulder in it. It's going to be fully automated.
It's going to be fully automated with very skilled people managing it.
Yeah.
That
keeps our costs down, by the way.
It keeps our costs down, and so we got to be focused, as the Business Alliance has always been focused, MEC before them, on workforce development. I'd like to see us bring back more workforce development in our high schools. We used to have vocational education all across the state, young people who weren't going to go to college, and we've let that sort of slip away. We need to bring it back, refocus on our community and junior colleges, and then making sure that we as a state have the high-skilled training that our next generation workforce is going to have to survive and thrive. And I think that's the way we can move ahead for the future of Mississippi.
I caught an interview this morning with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and he said that China has bought 25 million tons of soybeans, that they are, in fact, at least it appears to date in this round, complying with their agreement. They're known for not doing that in the past. They're not honorable in that respect.
Right.
So are you hearing some feedback from our soybean farmers saying, I'm able to sell more of my product? Because that's been a huge problem.
It has helped. It's helped with the price. It's helped farmers be a little more optimistic, but it's not, nobody's saying, great, we're going to have a great year. This is, are we going to keep farming next year, that type of discussion. And I think that what the president announced back in December with the $12 billion relief program that he's launching, I think that's going to help as well. And we just have to persevere through this at the same time as thinking long-term as to what we can do as a state to help our farmers have more profitability in their operations. And I do believe, and I fully support what President Trump is doing, and that's reshoring, bringing back jobs from overseas to our country. And in Mississippi, the biggest part of our economy is agriculture, so that makes perfect sense as to where we can focus. I will be traveling with the Trump administration to different parts of the world, some key trade deals that we're working on. Later this year, I have 2 trips that are scheduled, so I'll be promoting Mississippi and different parts of the globe. But I do think we got to get back to taking care of our folks, local demand. That's going to help our farmers more than anything else. Finding ways to use these products here locally, bring those jobs back here to Mississippi, and grow our already largest sector of our economy.
One of the problems, if you could call it that, is our farmers are too dang good. I mean,
overproduction.
It's overproduction. We need more markets and more use cases for these products.
Fewer farmers producing way more than used to be produced. I mean, with a lot, less people involved, and that's a trend that's going to continue.
Yeah.
We're being so successful. We have a classic supply and demand problem. We have too much supply and not enough demand. So let's figure out ways that we can meet the local demand. I'll give you 2 examples real quickly. We found out recently that we in America, we are importing 90% of our seafood into this country from foreign countries. We need to be using our own seafood, processing our own seafood. We don't need to be, and people don't want to buy that foreign product. And then the other one is we're importing a lot of foreign oil, soybean oil, my goodness, I mean, grain bins are full of soybeans right now that we could process into oil, and finding the right mix of the product, new uses for it, meeting that local demand is going to be where we add value for our farmers for the future.
Makes sense. Give us an outlook of the schedule, the use of our fairgrounds here, which your agency oversees. Of course, this is a great event at the Trade Mart. Trade Mart's a fantastic facility, much needed. Glad to see that done. You got a lot of events coming up, though.
We do. We're booked solid, and the Trade Mart is our number one most rented facility. Every weekend, some show is here, some event is here. This event today will, of course, all be geared toward our Dixie National Livestock Show and Rodeo the month of February. We're having the Dixie National Livestock Shows and some trade expos that are happening here at Dixie National Marketplace, a wildlife, ag, and outdoor expo, and I'm trying to get Bill Dance to come to that. He's working. I'm working with Bill on some legislation right now, so he's talking about coming here for that. But our rodeo, the largest rodeo east of the Mississippi River, will fill up the Coliseum February 13th through 21st. And then right after that, we get into a lot of basketball events and other sporting events, and then graduation. So all the schools in this area and some all over the state have graduations here the month of May. And we just keep it busy all the way through. Time for the fair will roll around, and you know what happens during the state fair.
Yeah.
So it's the fair and the rodeo that kind of are our bookends, and those two events pay the bills for this 105-acre complex. And I appreciate everybody who comes out to support it. And thanks for the legislature for your support.
Before we go, Commissioner, you and I were talking offline about some legislation that has been introduced that would require obtaining a license for farmers even, right? And individuals on their private property to take out predators. Tell us about that.
It's ridiculous. House Bill 828, I don't know the reason, but that bill needs to die because it takes our farmers' rights, hunters' rights, landowner rights, God-given rights away. The legislature, please let that bill die and pass into oblivion.
Yeah, I agree. Bad legislation. The Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, Andy Gibson, has been our guest here on Middays from the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Thanks for coming on, Commissioner.
Thank you, Gerard. Appreciate
you. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. We're coming right back. The Element Wealth Studio, once again at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Stay with us.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite!
On Super Talk Mississippi.
Well, I remember every little thing as if it happened only yesterday. Parking by the lake and there was not another car inside. And I never had a girl.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, the Element Wealth Studio down at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Later on today at the Trade Mart, the governor, lieutenant governor, and Speaker of the House will be speaking to the attendees, the participants at this event. And that's really what it's all about. It brings together the business community and our state leaders and lawmakers. Just thinking about this school choice issue, Will, it's just fascinating to watch how it has fused some unlikely relationships. And you know what they say, politics makes strange bedfellows. Wow, has that ever been more evident in the state of Mississippi than on this issue, where the talking points that you see and you hear from the Democrats are the same that you're hearing from the Republicans who oppose this legislation. There's really little to no distinction. So this is what's really fascinating is you've got people who are referring to those who support school choice as the dreaded rhino word, right? But it's the opponents who are aligned with the Democrats. So can you help me square that one up? Will, I can't make that work. Let's see. You're in lockstep with Democrats, But the people, and you're conservative, but the people who are on the other side of the issue from the Democrats, they're the rhinos. So I think what that means is that there's really no hard, fast, definitive definition of that term, which is intended to be a pejorative, of course. Really doesn't make any sense. There's also some talk about the amount of money that that gets diverted from public education, and I can't make the math equal what the Mississippi House Democratic Caucus states in its communication. Initially, as you know, the Magnolia student accounts, as they are called, there are 13,000 that are available in year one, and those are split. 6,250 are available for those currently in public schools, and the other 6,250 are available to everyone else, essentially. And so if those that are, by the way, that are moving from one public school to another public school, that doesn't really take money away from public education. I think that's where there's a lot of just mistakes in the math. Just want to point that out. So I get it. If you do the 13,000 and you multiply that by, it's assuming that all of those accounts are taken, and you get the $7,000 state amount. Yeah, it's around $90 million. I get that. But let's also keep in mind that education, public education in this state is significantly more than that. So that's a tiny fraction of the total cost of education in the state. And we should also keep in mind that, in fact, it's $3.8 billion is what the education budget is for fiscal year 2026, which kicked off July 1 of 2025. So we're talking about a fraction of the total money. And that, let's also keep in mind that we have continuously increased the amount invested in public education for quite some time. I mean, it is just almost a line that is not straight up, but it's got a significant steep decline from left to right through the years as it increases. And so I think it's disingenuous to say that even under Republican leadership, since the control of the legislature was flipped back in 2015, it's disingenuous. It's just intellectually dishonest to say that they just haven't been increasing funding on education. That's just simply not true. And there's still people out there that are saying they need to fully fund the old funding formula, the MAEP, Adequate Education Program, Mississippi Adequate Education Program. Well, that's been replaced. It's like, did you guys not get the memo on that? So there's a whole new program, whole new funding formula that went through, that passed. I mean, it's law that was pretty widely supported, honestly. I think it is a much better funding formula. I said many times, Will, that you'd have a hard time finding anybody in the legislature that could even explain the old formula. It was so convoluted and so complicated. At least we have something that's a lot more straightforward and makes a lot more sense. Hey, look, here's a base amount, and here's some adjustments to that based on the theory, and it's not even a theory, but the reality that it costs more money. If you've got sparsity, that's the one I like, the sparsity adjustment. That simply means that the population in your district is more widely dispersed, and it costs more money to transport the students on a bus. That makes sense. And then those in gifted programs, those that are in the career technical education programs, poverty, those in poverty, you get a little more money for them to support them. And then those who are learning English as a second language, if you will, the English learners. So that, I think, just made sense. I think we have a good formula for Mississippi public education now. So we can certainly debate what the right amount should be of the base student cost, and there's a lot of math and policy behind the scenes that drives that. But it's certainly not accurate to say, oh, we've just been neglecting funding public education, because we have continuously increased it since Republicans have been in charge of the legislature, and of course the governor's office as well. It represents 54% of total general fund spending at $3.8 billion. So there's a bunch of money there. I failed to accept that where we do have underperforming schools and underperforming districts, that it's a function of money from the state. Now, you could say that they don't have as big a tax base at the state, at the local level. Certainly, you could hold that view, and that would make sense because they don't have as much to contribute. There's a minimum amount there, but the wealthier districts, from a property perspective, yeah, they're able to add more to public education. So all that makes sense. That's why the key here is to grow the state's economy, to produce more revenue and more income. And the other thing that is a bit fascinating are the people who want to cut property taxes, but they want to increase education funding. I don't know if you've seen this, Will. This hit me last night just thinking about all the people who are saying that, hey, look, I'm opposed to this HB2, and I think we need to increase funding for education. But by the way, cut my property taxes. Well, the majority of your property taxes go to education. So that doesn't make any sense. Which do you want here? You want lower property taxes, but you want more money to go to education. So are you more aligned with the Democrats? You just want to go shake down the wealthier people and take more income taxes from them? Or do you want to assess property taxes based on the income level? What do you want to do here? Those two don't reconcile. I want to pay less in. I want taxpayers to pay less in, but I want more going out. And the next thing you know, you've got a deficit situation. So none of that's adding up. I just would like for people to take a moment just to consider all that and just the mathematical realities there. But that's what we're dealing with, is that some 30+% of public school funding comes from local property taxes. And I know property taxes are unpopular. I get it. I don't like paying them either, but we'd have to come up with something else, especially if you want more revenue to schools. Want more revenue to schools, you want to cut property taxes, okay, then where do you want that revenue to come from? By the way, we've got the income tax being phased out, so that's less revenue into the Treasury, into the general fund, which then gets doled out to schools to the tune of 54% of total general fund revenues. I know I'm going through a lot of numbers here. But you have to. You can't ignore the numbers. You're talking about a bunch of dollars, and you're talking about taxes. You're talking about spending. All that adds up, and it's just the devil's in the details, as they say, in all of those numbers. Man, complicated issue for sure. And then I wonder, do all these people oppose the president who has implemented these in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the $1,700 scholarship tax credits that our governor has seen fit to sign off on and will make available to taxpayers in the state of Mississippi? We're going to step aside for a break again. We're at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. That's where we've relocated the Element Wealth studio for today. Stay with us, coming right back.
Middays with Gerard Gibbert. It is on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart, located square dab in the middle of the Mississippi State Fairgrounds. We're here for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect event this afternoon. Statewide leaders will be addressing the attendees, the participants, and this is just an event where business and lawmakers and government come together. That's really the mission of the Mississippi Business Alliance, which is newly formed and consists of the former organizations known as the Mississippi Economic Council, the Mississippi Manufacturers Association, and BIPEC. In fact, we've got the president of the Mississippi Business Alliance, John McKay, formerly the president of the Mississippi Manufacturers Association. He'll join middays in hour 3 of the program. So I was talking in the last segment about how we're seeing some strange bedfellows between Democrats and Republicans on this school choice issue. Now, virtually no Democrats support education freedom. They're, of course, way more pro-government and government schools and government funding for government schools. You could call it socialized education. Out there in Idaho, which is a Republican state, a red state, a small state from a population perspective, a big state from a land area perspective, but not a lot of people, the Idaho Democratic Party is taking action to protect tax dollars from voucher schemes. That's what they call it. The House and Senate Democratic leaders last week sent a letter to the Idaho Tax Commission demanding real oversight before a single taxpayer dollar goes out the door as they continue working to repeal vouchers altogether. Strange to me, Will, how all of a sudden they've had an epiphany. They want oversight of public dollars. Where the heck have they been? When our public dollars, especially at the federal level, but to a great extent at the state and local level as well, are just torpedoed, flushed down the toilet. And they look the other way. Now all of a sudden, they care because of this one issue. And in fact, to that end, this is bizarre to me, but there is a bill. You didn't hear a lot about this, Will, that Congress finally passed a bill to make sure we don't send money to dead people. John Kennedy. It's Senator John Kennedy's legislation from our neighbor to the west in Louisiana. It literally passed the House and Senate. I heard nothing about it until yesterday, and it is waiting for the president to enact it into law. Now, I find this insane that we've got to have a bill, a law, to not pay dead people. Because where in the heck in the law does it say dead people are entitled to benefits? By the way, the name of this legislation, Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. You can't make it up, as they say. Now, Kennedy said it's taken him years to get this through Congress. So what does this mean? That these same Democrats want to, that by the way, are so mad about these voucher schemes, they're okay with paying dead people. You see the insanity of this argument? So it is estimated by the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, and also the General Accounting Office, the GAO, that in 2025, the federal government paid $1.3 billion to dead people. Now, I think that's low. It's bizarre to me as an IT person that our systems allow checks to go out, payments to go out, not all checks. A lot of that, of course, is electronic deposits, to dead people, that we don't have a way with all the information in this country to update and maintain currency of those records to ensure that no dead people are getting benefits?
Yeah, he had a quote. I want to read this quote to you. Quote, "We found that Social Security was not sharing this information. The names of the folks on the and this is what the Social Security Administration calls it, the death master file with the rest of they weren't sharing it with the rest of the federal government. One branch of government wasn't talking to the other branch of federal government. I didn't know there was a such thing until right now, that there was a thing called the death master file, which sounds like a terrible action movie.
Well, I know I've talked about this before, but this harkens me back to when I was a baby developer back in, believe it or not, this is 1980. And I was working on this project, one of the architects for the state of Louisiana's retirement system, first automated state pension system in the country. And that's one of the things we figured out early on was, wait, you guys don't have any way of updating your records without the beneficiary's family informing you, notifying you, hey, look, quit sending the checks. Didn't have electronic deposits back then. It literally was paper checks. Quit sending the checks. And so in our research, we found that there was one son of a deceased beneficiary in their public employees retirement system. 11 years had been cashing those checks. 11 years.
Wow.
And so all we did was just set up a monthly process where we would get an old reel-to-reel tape back in those days. You didn't have electronic internet and network connectivity the way we do today. We had to get hard media. In that case, it was a reel-to-reel tape, and we'd mount it, and we'd just read the records of all the dead people. It was from the Louisiana Vital Records or whatever, deceased in the last month, and we'd update the retirement system's payroll files to flag them as deceased so those checks would go up. Now, sometimes they would have some further action as part of their retirement plan selection upon their death, where there'd be something left over that would, go to a beneficiary. That's different. But you're not sending monthly checks. That's the point. And that was pretty simple. So we saved millions. It literally paid for the system in like 2 years, just cutting that. So I'm thinking here, 40 years later, we're still fighting this at the federal level. That's mind-blowing to me. And, this is happening at the state level as well. So I'm going to say again, all this fraud and this waste and abuse of taxpayer money, it's not because we don't have enough laws. It's not because we don't have enough people. It's because our systems suck. And this is all a function of terrible electronic systems. You would never operate a private company like that. Never. You would have any of those kinds of anomalies and situations accounted for in the controls of those systems. Because everything's electronic. Everything's digital. And the only way to stop all this is to modernize those systems. No laws are gonna change that. Nothing. No, you don't need more people, and we need to be using modern technology, including artificial intelligence, video, drones, as far as I'm concerned, just to make sure that all this money we're sending out is correct and is going to people who are truly eligible, like these Somalia daycare centers. Well, what would be the problem of just mounting video? You want this money? We're going to put video cameras, not inside, outside the doors. And with AI, you could detect, hey, nobody's going in and out of the doors. Because, that's one of the things they found out, right, Will, is that, hey, wait, you don't have any kids here. You're getting this money, and you got this building, and you got this sign with the misspelled word on it, but there are no people coming in this place. There are no families. What's wrong with that? And you could do that without any people. Just it would trigger, it would notify, it would flag those benefits and just stop it right there. Hey, until you come forward and show that you're actually got people. What about these people that what was it, Maine, I think, that were getting paid a bunch of money to drive people around in some of these Medicaid programs, but they weren't actually driving people around. They were just pocketing the cash. Well, what would be the problem? Hey, you want that money? You're going to submit to having us track your vehicle. It's some sort of surveillance to make sure you're actually complying with the law and you're truly eligible for these benefits. I just believe that you should have to forego some of what the rest of us enjoy as our privacy if you're getting public money.
I think technology is the answer to a lot of this. It seems
it's totally the answer.
The death master file should have been updated a long time ago, but I guess it wasn't.
It's easy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Kennedy, you see what he said there. It goes back to 23 when he started talking about this. He couldn't get it through. which is just mind-blowing to me. Man, oh, man. So we have to have a law to say, hey, government, don't pay dead people. That's just incredible. And you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. It'll still happen because they won't modernize the systems. They're just slow. There's no sense of urgency. Man, oh, man. Well, I applaud the senator for at least addressing the issue. Coming up next, where the Element Wealth studio has been relocated to the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect, it's Amy Tate, Senior State Director, Government and Community Relations in Tennessee, at the Tennessee Valley Authority, board member, the Mississippi Business Alliance. Stay with us.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibbert.
We'll do it live.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, the Element Wealth studio down at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. We're pleased to welcome now Amy Tate, Senior State Director, Government and Community Relations at the Tennessee Valley Authority, also a board member of the Mississippi Business Alliance. Amy, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So what do you think about these three organizations combining to form the Mississippi Business Alliance? We talked to Lex Taylor, also on the board as well. He seems to be pretty excited about this.
Oh, I think it's a great idea. When we started talking about it, I guess 2 years ago, piqued my interest. I'm like, okay, how's this going to work? Because we had three very strong organizations. But if you think about it, things are getting faster. You know, companies are moving quicker. We have RFPs that are due sooner. So I think by combining this group, more consistency, speed to trust, that also allows the opinion leaders and the policymakers to go, wait a minute, this group's all together. We're confident in that. We can implement policy quickly.
That's a good point, because a lot of times there may be some hesitation or concern that, well, this may be what this group wants, but then I got to go check with this group, and there may be some conflict there, and a lot of times as a result, nothing happens.
Right.
So this way you've got kind of a more universal voice and advocacy, right?
Yes,
is what's going on.
And I think that's going to be important, and also letting the folks that are on the board and that are involved really holistically think about the state. You know, all of us want the same thing. Can't do it by ourselves. So now that there's a one-stop shop, like I said, speed to trust, allows that policy maybe to be enacted quicker. That's music to our ears, especially anybody in the economic development world.
Have you talked to any legislators, Amy, or any statewide leaders? Have they provided some feedback about this combination?
Yeah, sure. I've talked to some folks in North Mississippi. They think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Because, again, instead of having three different groups come to you with messaging and how they feel about it, you've got this one-stop shop on things that are affecting all of Mississippians, you know, be that infrastructure or workforce development. It's easier for them to get it from one voice.
Yeah. So Mississippi has scored some incredible economic development wins and successes. The governor touts those, as well he should. It's really put Mississippi on the map. We've got the income tax being phased out. We've got a fairly business-friendly regulatory environment. We've got plenty of land and natural resources. We've got a great workforce, but the whole country is challenged with trying to ensure that workforce is ready for the jobs of the future. What do you guys need here in Mississippi, do you think?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. What we need is speed. What we need is that environment that allows us to go and attract these companies. I get to travel the Valley. TVA serves 7 states, and I get to see what other states are doing. And I'll tell you, North Mississippi, it's about as competitive as they come.
Yeah.
You know, folks think some of these other areas, but if you look at some of the big fish that we've landed up in my part of the world, super impressive. You know, the legislature worked on Project Poppy and all of our industry in the Golden Triangle. But I think what Dr. Taylor is doing at Accelerate, I think this board coming together, I just think all of these things are ripe for Mississippi. The governor and his leadership, we're excited about Mississippi's future.
Yeah, and I think we should be. The future is certainly bright, and we have gotten some national, if not global, notoriety as Mississippi was selected by some of these major global organizations to make big-time investments, and we will all benefit from that.
That's right, and not only the existing workforce, but I have 2 in college. I want them to stay here.
Absolutely.
I want to be by those grandbabies one day. So
Sure.
what are we doing to make sure they want to come and stay home and make Mississippi a better place to live and work?
You talk about your role with the TBA you shared with me before we went on the air. You've been there for quite some time.
26 years.
That's impressive. That's incredible.
Yes.
So, as you know, that one of the subjects that gets as much attention as anything is just our need for more power.
More.
Yeah. More.
And we're seeing growth all throughout the valley. We're seeing that in all 7 of our states. And we're in build mode right now, building assets. We just broke ground on a 500-megawatt natural gas plant in Lowndes County.
Wow, awesome.
Up in Caledonia. And then investing in our transmission infrastructure.
Yeah.
Doing lots of upgrades throughout the valley. But yeah, the growth is not slowing down, so we're figuring that out. All the topics that are coming about with SMRs, data centers. It just seems like every day there's something new, and there's a hot potato we're having to deal with. But as long as we keep it affordable, keep those rates low, we're going to help figure it out.
Because the demand is certainly not slowing down. If anything,
not at all.
It's
Not
sharply
at all.
rising. So, just a couple of seconds. I read a really comprehensive report published by Microsoft a couple of days ago that talks about their need for power and how they're going to not only invest in that, but they are committing that they will pay for all the incremental costs associated with their new power demand.
Yeah, and I think all of us, my friends from Mississippi Power and Energy are in this meeting with me.
Yeah.
That's something we're all going to have to talk about and figure that out together.
It is. Amy Tate, Senior State Director, Government and Community Relations at the Tennessee Valley Authority, also a board member for the Mississippi Business Alliance, has been our guest. Thanks, Amy, for coming on. Yeah. We're stepping aside for a break. It's Fox News, Super Talk News, then the afternoon portion of Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart. Stay with us.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibbert here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. We are live at the Mississippi Trade Mart. That's where we've relocated the Element Wealth studio today for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. We are so pleased that you chose to join us today. So there was a question on the C Spire text line. I see, how can I find my representative in the state legislature based on my address? I haven't done that in a while, but I seem to recall there a number of advocacy groups and private organizations that have a search tool built into them that would allow you to input your address and find your legislator, I should say. I'm looking at one from the Mississippi Academy of Family Physicians. I think they have such a tool to do that came up when I searched for it. I know Empower Mississippi also had one as well that would allow you to do that. So I haven't checked those in a while, but let me know. You should be able to do that on some of those sites. I would just go out and do a little quick search for that, find my legislator, and I think you'll see some stuff. Let's see, if you happen to subscribe to, you don't actually have to, but Ballotopedia. I am a subscriber to that. Great information from that source as well. So, the Secretary of State's website, well, I haven't checked that, but I wonder if it has such a tool that allows that. I'm honestly not sure. But something to check out. And then, the another possibility is the Mississippi legislature. Haven't ever checked that as well. Can you actually find your address, enter your address there, and find your rep? Not sure. Hadn't done that. Good question, though. We'll keep working on that. Let's see what else we got on the C Spire text line. Oh, Keith and Baden wants to congratulate Will. That's right. Baby girl, you got it coming there, Will. Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you, sir. We found out live on Sports Talk on Friday.
That's right.
You were listening.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That is totally awesome. I think a couple of people on our text line wanted to send good wishes to you for the great news. That is fantastic. So, the education, the higher education community in industry in this country is facing lots of headwinds. And Brandeis President Arthur Levine predicts that 20 to 25% of U.S. colleges may close soon due to disruptions in higher education. Wealthier institutions will have the resources, he suggests, to adapt, while the smaller colleges face some immediate challenges. I agree, especially the liberal arts schools, such as Brandeis, that focus on liberal arts curricula. Those definitely are very vulnerable, no doubt about that. And I think you're going to see consolidation. I think a lot of folks are determining that they're simply not worth it, that the money you would spend on a college education, sometimes upwards of $400,000 or $500,000, just doesn't produce the results and the value that you would think that kind of money should. And I would tend to agree. I mean, the world is changing dramatically. Again, here in interviews that I did this morning with the Treasury Secretary and also Mike Rowe, he was on the Business Channel this morning, Will, and he was talking about this explosion of the need for the trades. Of course, he's been a huge proponent of trade-oriented jobs. That's just kind of what he does, calling attention to that. And he's the one that, as I recall, was talking about electricians in Texas earning $250,000. And he said that there's strong competition, intense competition for them. They often get poached. And when they get poached, of course, they typically increase their pay as part of the poaching process. But this is being driven by the data center construction. I know back in 2019, when we first started talking about this AWS project in Madison County, long before the legislature, the governor, MDA got involved, but just, initial conversations, and they were talking about this kind of the size and scale and scope of that construction effort. They said, you probably don't have enough electricians in the whole state of Mississippi to handle this project. Literally, that's what they said. So, and that's good news, right? Because that's excess demand. It's good for laborers. So we still have lots of these construction jobs that are just unfilled. And of course, when you got demand that exceeds supply, being driven by this explosion of data center construction, well then pay, compensation, wages increase dramatically. And that's exactly what's going on in this country. So those that say that, we're not just getting any benefit for that, they're overlooking. And they say they're temporary, but okay, all construction is temporary. When you finish the project, you move on to another one. I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. I really see this explosion continuing, and so do economists and industry experts as well. So on the C Spire text line, Dan in Hattiesburg sent us the link to the Secretary of State's website concerning finding your rep. I haven't dug into it, entered any information. Don't see just right off the top of my head here where that would occur. But I don't know. There's a voter information guide. I mean, I'm familiar with all that, but those are just all publications, PDFs. But hopefully that would help you out. So What else we got here?
You talked about this college,
Yeah.
the higher institutions. It's called the cliff. There's been for me. The population of America is getting older.
Absolutely.
There's less young people being born, and
huge problem.
It's a huge problem. So those enrollment numbers that you had, 10, 15 years ago, or even 20 years ago, you're not going to be able to meet those for the most part. You get that plus less people going to college. College is more expensive than ever. And then you have online institutions which are now offering stuff.
Totally correct. That's something that the Brandeis president, Levine, talks about. And this has been top of mind for college administrators for some time, and that's just the explosion of digital approaches to education. Now, I personally think you lose a lot of the college experience and just learning how to manage your time and being a student on a campus or around a campus. I think there's a lot of value to that, and having that face-to-face interaction with an instructor, but it's not for everybody. And, of course, the other thing is, that employers, they're more interested in having certifications, technical professional certifications, than they are the degree itself. And so that's also driving this headwind that colleges are facing. And so all of that's at play, no doubt about it. We're blessed here in the state of Mississippi. Our major institutions have all experienced pretty significant increases in enrollment. We're sort of bucking the national trend in that respect. And there are a number of reasons for that, but overall, nationally, there is a decline. And you make a great point. Elon Musk, he calls attention to this on a regular basis, that he says we're running out of people, that our birth rate it stands at about 1.6. We need 2.1 just to stay level with the people that die and leave us. We're not replacing them at enough of a rate that will keep our population flowing and viable. And that is a huge factor, as you point out, in college education. Look, that's a problem in public education in general, because you need students. Students are where the funding comes from, and that's what pushes the industry. It's what drives the industry. So.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of these smaller institutions close, but you've seen some big universities struggle financially. The University of Arizona, they were facing headwinds. Oregon State's another one that's experiencing significant shortfalls, and it's just because they thought this money would just continue to roll in like it did, 10, 15 years ago, and slowly starting to kind of fall off.
That's a mistake. I agree. And so these institutions are having to adapt. And look, it's competitive. They're having to adapt. You're going to see some consolidation. Some go by the wayside. I think that's just kind of a natural reaction to the realities of what's going on in our population and in our society. We're going to step aside for a break once again at the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect down here at the Mississippi Trademark. Got a couple of texts we'll get to on the other side of this. Thank you.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're...
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibbert.
Let's get on with it.
On Super Talk Mississippi.
Turn it up.
Welcome back, everyone. It is middays. The Element Wealth Studio has been relocated today to the Mississippi Trademark for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. That's what we're here for, and we're all set to talk now to Courtney Taylor, Executive Director of Accelerate Mississippi. Courtney, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me. Hope you're having a good day.
We are. You are. Fantastic day. all is well here in the great state of Mississippi. All right, so start out by just telling the folks exactly what the mission is of Accelerate Mississippi.
So to put it very simply, the mission of Accelerate is to work on workforce development items that help more people get to work making more money.
Love it. All right.
Bold
so
and simple as it goes.
And that's a pretty important thing to a bunch of business people here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's important to the business people, important to the people in general. So,
yeah. So this is an event, as you know, that brings together those business people with their business interests and agenda and needs, and our lawmakers, our elected officials, all the way up to the governor, the statewide elected officials, and many legislators as well. And this is when they collaborate and talk about that. And I think the good news here overall, Courtney, is that Mississippi is a pro-business state. It is a friendly state to business. And I point that out because some aren't so friendly to businesses.
Yes.
They're like, these are the people that make all this possible. So, but businesses, no secret there. The rate and the speed at which job needs and occupational requirements and skills required there change, that time frame is compressed dramatically due to a number of factors. And this is a big problem for businesses, and you guys help them out by trying to get our people skilled so that they can take on these jobs.
Absolutely. It's critical in a lot of ways, and the world is changing. It's no longer necessarily this really high volume of jobs. It's a high volume of skills that people need to take those jobs.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And so here in Mississippi, we've got a fairly robust economy, and we're seeing lots of growth and lots of demand for jobs. But often there's a misalignment between the jobs that are available and the skills our workers have to fill those jobs. And that's where you guys come in.
It is, and it is a complicated puzzle, as you can imagine. It involves everything from pre-K to continuing education, and it involves people being at the table, especially from the industry side, to say these are the competencies that we need the system to produce, and we have to make sure that the system's producing that as a whole. It's not just our responsibility; that it's ultimately the responsibility of elected leaders in Mississippi. And our job is really, as we go in there, is to try to say this is aligned, this isn't aligned. This is going to help improve productivity and help our companies grow and ultimately become more profitable.
So the one thing I talk about a lot, because I think it bears discussion, is that there more collaboration between the private sector, the educational community, and our lawmakers, perhaps, than ever. And it's necessitated by this labor issue that we have.
It is. The world shifted under our feet during COVID, and we squeezed about a decade's worth of change in about 2 or 3 years. So it has required more out of each of us. It wasn't just that wages had to go up. It was that skills had to go up. And I think we're kind of tackling it, and I'm very biased, obviously, when I say this, but I think we're tackling that better than most states by simply taking a real honest look at where we are and what we need to do, and then just picking the problem. And there's never going to be a shortage of problems where people are concerned, right? So there's always going to be something else.
Yeah, Mike Rowe, of course, he's a very vocal proponent of labor, in particular in the trades. And it's interesting to me how the high-tech industry is sort of driving the demand for the trade skills, right? And he says when he talks to employers and they say, where am I going to find these people? You know what he tells them? The 8th grade.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it just sounded so profound, but it's very wise in my view.
Yeah, it's very wise, and it's also it requires everybody to take a longer view of what an entry-level workforce looks like. And I completely agree at the 8th grade. I don't think we do enough as a nation, and not yet as a state, to really show people what jobs are out there and what work looks like. It's if you don't experience work until you turn 18, we're going to be delayed. So the more we can do, the younger they are, reasonably, I think the better off they are, so they can start picking where they want to be in the labor market. And knowing.
Well, and in the old days, you could hire a worker and go through an onboarding and process in maybe a couple of days, and boom, you could send them out, and they're productive and ready to hit the streets running. You can't do that anymore. They got to be equipped with a certain skill level just to function.
They do. They've got to be able to solve problems. They've got to be able to do math. There's a lot of things that we kind of glossed over for a long time because we just had this big pool of people, and as a nation, we just don't anymore. So we got to do better with the people we do have.
Yeah, there's
for them.
No doubt about it. All right, so what programs, initiatives do you guys have going on at Accelerate Mississippi you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, so thank you. First of all, we have our career coaches. Those are out and about, and we're working to continue to not just scale that program, but make sure we're maturing it appropriately, where our coaches have the information they need about their local labor markets, and then they're focusing on those local labor markets, not the typical doctor, lawyer, the things students tend to find on their own. So we're excited about kind of doing some tweaks there to really push that home and help the students who do want to stay home. And we think there's students out there who leave and go off to do things because they don't know what's in their own backyard. So
agree. Really
doubling down with that this next year. And Blaze King works on that program for us. So he and Ed Hargrove are diving down into that. We have a couple of programs that we're proud of that are new. We have a program called Encore, which is calling on our retired experts. And that's where we are attempting to build an instructor pool for our next generation. Right now, we have the need for more people to be trained than we've really had in a long time as a state. And it's occurring at the same time that people are naturally retiring. So why not say, hey, instead of leaving completely, come back part-time or full-time or however you want to do it and be an instructor.
Yeah.
I just actually left Nissan's going a step further with that in their centers of excellence, and they're hiring instructors directly to send out into the local high schools.
Yeah.
So they're kind of saying we'll just do that with full-time people today. So I think it's great. We have a couple of instructor quality training to try to help our instructors improve their skills. We don't do enough of that in workforce. It's not about credentialing them in their specific area. It's about helping them do more with adult learners and student learners alike. So those are kind of some of our big external things. And then internally we have Talent Solutions, which we've been developing for the last little while. And Talent Solutions is really what we just call informally our SWAT team for workforce development. They go into new and expanding companies and try to be subject matter experts of what it means to hire Mississippi's workforce. Help companies navigate that so they don't have to come and learn it on their own for the first time when they come here or when they expand. So these are all really critical things that can't be taken individually. They matter all together.
Wow, that's a lot that you guys going on, but the needs are a lot.
There are
as well. So, what kind of feedback, Courtney, are you hearing from the business community with respect to the individuals that have gone through your programs? What do they tell you?
So far, this is pretty limited in scale, obviously, but they have really appreciated the specificness. So instead of a shotgun approach, it very much is a surgical approach, and we are funded and capable of doing that, whereas some of our partners just aren't funded to do that. So they're appreciative of that. A lot of times it's just we don't know how to navigate all this stuff. So helping them navigate it. They love the Career Coach program. Everybody seems to really, really enjoy that program. So we're working really hard to make sure that we never rest on that and that we always go from there. But I think most of all, people have communicated that they enjoy the specificity that is helping in the local level. It's not just policy coming out of Jackson. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anything in particular Accelerate Mississippi needs from our legislature that you're talking to them about?
I think just continued communication. I really have had a lot of fun sitting down with our chairmen and women to really go through some of these issues, and I think this year has been probably one of the best where that's concerned. I think in general, what I would say if there's legislators listening is just call me if you have a question. I have a little bit of a reputation for being direct, so I won't hide behind anything. And so if there's legislators I'm not working with that have things that they need, I would say just call me and ask me, or call John McKay or Patrick Sullivan or any of our board members, and they'll tell you the reality and maybe why it is. And I would say just keep working with us, because I know these things take time, but they're doing it.
So are you networking at the event? We got about a minute left. I'm sure you're meeting, run around, talking to a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
Getting ideas from them.
Absolutely.
Getting ideas from you.
And making sure they know who I am.
Yeah.
And saying, just call me. Just call me.
Well, good. That's great. Well, glad you're here doing that. So We've been talking to Dr. Courtney Taylor, Executive Director of Accelerate Mississippi. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you,
Thanks
Gerard.
a lot, Courtney.
Appreciate it.
We're stepping aside for a break right here. We're coming right back with half an hour remaining in the afternoon portion of Middays. We're at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Stay with us.
Middays with Gerard Gibbert.
Welcome to our shop.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. I've seen it before.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. Thank you so much for joining us today. In the next segment, we'll have John McKay. He's the president and CEO of the Mississippi Business Alliance. So, taking a look on the C Spire text line, we had some questions about the Senate Bill 828. And Larry and Mize also asked a question as well. So Senate Bill 828, I think they may be thinking about House Bill 828, Will. I don't think it's Senate Bill 828. I mean, there could be a Senate Bill 828, but I think what all the firestorm's about is this legislation that would regulate, it's what the Commissioner Andy Gibson was talking about earlier on the program, hunting, trapping, taking of nuisance animals, what they are called, require a permit and a hunting license to hunt or trap such nuisance animals, even if they're damaging your private property. This is crazy to me. I oppose this legislation, and I know Larry and Mize says, a friend of mine called this morning and said a bill got dropped banning dog hunting in the state. I'm not familiar with that one, Will. Now, this particular bill we're talking about, this 828, it does have some provisions, prohibits the release of, it outlines authorized methods for controlling nuisance wildlife, including specific trapping methods and the use of dogs year-round. Can't release trapped wild hogs in a different location from where they were caught.
That I can understand.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You shouldn't be able to, I'm going to dump them on your property, right? So I get that. Requiring hunters to wear at least 500 square inches of solid, unbroken fluorescent orange or pink when hunting wild hogs during gear done season. That's kind of the major provisions of this House Bill 828. The Mississippi Fair Chase Act is what it is, how it is styled, entitled. So, yeah, I don't know how far this thing's going to go. It has two sponsors, Representatives Harris and Keene. It has been referred to Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and that's where it sits. So it would make it unlawful to hunt, trap, or take any game or fur-bearing animal that is damaging crops. Now, that's the caveat. That's the qualification. I still think this is crazy that you would have to obtain a depredation permit. I never even heard of such, honestly. I mean, it just seems common sense to me. You got wild animals, deer too, as you know, that can destroy property and especially farmland.
Yeah, and they define nuisance animals. The Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks on their website, they define the following species are defined as nuisance animals in the state of Mississippi: beaver, which can destroy a lot of timberland, as you probably know; coyote, which can hunt, livestock and get after your chickens and all that kind of stuff; fox, we don't have a whole lot of those; nutria, skunk, that's offensive to all of us; and then wild hogs.
Okay. So they don't mention deer in there because don't deer destroy a lot of farmland as well?
They can. They can eat up crops and.
They do around my yard.
They eat my trees all the time.
Exactly. Stuff that we paid money for to put in the ground there in the landscaping. Yeah, I'm not sure where this came from. I'm a little surprised that such legislation would even get drafted in the state of Mississippi. How big a problem is this? I mean, what problem are we trying to solve here? I always think in terms of when somebody files a bill, drafts a bill, like, what problem are you trying to solve? I've never heard of this being a problem.
Well, I can understand if the point of the bill is to stop people from trapping wild hogs and dropping them off on somebody else's property. Everybody I know just kills them.
Sure, yeah.
There's no season on them whatsoever. You can do whatever you want to with them, but I could understand if somebody, if it's a big never heard of that, but must have happened somewhere for somebody to be trapping wild hogs and dropping them off on somebody else's land, which is just mean, by the way.
I totally agree. And I guess I would say I'm a little surprised we already don't have some sort of law that protects against somebody just dumping on your property, even if it is an animal. I don't know. Maybe we need new laws for that. Kind of like, why would we need Senator Kennedy in Louisiana to put a bill out there that says we can't pay dead people? I mean, that's just insane to me.
If you're trapping wild hogs, if you're trapping wild hogs and dropping them off on somebody else's property, you are one bad hombre. Okay,
I agree.
You need to be locked up.
I mean, is the property owner having an affair with your wife or something? Or
that's about the meanest thing you could possibly do to a human. I'd rather them report me to the IRS than drop wild hogs on my property. I'm going to tell you, they're terrible.
I agree. That's just, I don't know, man. The C Spire text line, just more money. Josh and Clint says it's already illegal to transport live wild hogs. I would think it is as well. Josh, thanks for pointing that out. It just seems bizarre to me. They do that to spread them so they will have more hogs to run and hunt. Oh, okay.
Well, but, if you need more wild hogs to come running, come on down to my piece of land, okay? I got plenty for you.
Yeah, they're like rats. I mean, them and deer, we got more of them than people in the state, right? So it's not a shortage of any of that. My gosh, we're doing people in the environment a favor for thinning out the herd, honestly. Man, oh, man. Whew. Brian in Madison said, I thought it was illegal. Yeah, he said the same thing. I thought it was illegal. We're confused as well, Brian, but maybe we'll get – and I just read the summary information. I haven't dug, into the details of the legislation. So, man, oh, man. Paula Meridian says, what about a whitetail hunter? If a coyote turns up, the deer hunt just turned into a coyote hunt. I don't know. So several people saying, it's illegal to transport wild hogs. That's what we understand. It makes sense to me that we already have laws, so I don't know. Now, that may be, why do we need this additional bill that says you can't dump them on somebody else's property?
Yeah, there's got to be something else to this.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Another piece of legislation that is interesting was filed by newly elected in a special election, Don Hartness, a senator now from Jones County, District 42. And he has introduced legislation that would require voters to affiliate with a party or be an independent, if that would be their choice. And so that is interesting. That's talked about a lot. And the purpose of that is to protect against the problem of people that are, I guess, traditionally Democrats that vote in Republican primaries and vice versa, right? So you know the laws in the state of Mississippi. If you vote in the primary and there is a runoff for the primary elections are actually conducted by the parties. So if you vote in a primary, a particular party's primary, if there is a runoff in the primary is contested, then you can only vote in the runoff for the party where you voted for the primary. So you can't vote in the Republican primary and then in a Democrat runoff, vice versa. However, if you don't vote in the primary, and this is where the problem comes in, if you don't vote in a party's primary, you're free to vote in the runoff. Even though you didn't vote, and even though it's not your party necessarily. Now, it's all a guess as to what your party is right now because we don't declare party affiliation when we register to vote. So should this bill get passed, it would mean that everyone in the state of Mississippi that's registered to vote would have to somehow go declare their party affiliation. I don't know what that process would look like. I guess you'd have to go down to the circuit clerk's office and declare your party affiliation. I guess that's how that would work. And then there's questions. I haven't read the legislation yet, but there's questions about, well, can you switch parties? Can you say, hey, I'm a Democrat, except right before the primary you say, oh, no, I'm a Republican. I don't know. And then something else that the Gallup polling organization reported last week is that there are now more registered independents in the states that register by party than there are in either the Democrat or Republican party. In other words, most people are now declaring themselves to be independents as opposed to Republicans or Democrats. So if you were to declare as an independent in Mississippi, should this bill become law, you could only will vote in the general election, by the way. We're taking a break right now. We're coming back with John McKay. Stay with us.
At Fillmore Buick GM.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibbert on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We're wrapping things up today at the Mississippi Trade Mart. We're here for the first annual, actually, Mississippi Business Alliance Capital Connect. We're pleased to welcome now John McKay. He is the president and CEO of the newly minted Mississippi Business Alliance. Thanks for coming on, John.
Absolutely.
Big day, man.
It's huge, and like you said, we are literally 3 weeks into this grand voyage that we branded the Mississippi Business Alliance with the legacy organizations of MEC and MMA and BIPEC all coming together. What's funny is some people might view it as a kind of thing that's just cropped up. We've been working on this for a year and a half. Easily.
You guys were in the studio, it seemed like a year ago,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
when you had kind of announced this, and I could tell there was a little bit of trepidation, but there should be. This is a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, and you had two legacy organizations that had such a deep history, 70-plus years of impact on the state, and you had folks involved in those organizations that really had that connection. They had multi-generation connections, and so there was some nervousness about what does this look like? What does this mean for me personally? What does this mean for my community? And I think we've gone down the road of trying to answer those questions, and I think overwhelmingly it's an optimism out there about this.
It seems like it. We talked to a couple of your board members earlier, and they're super excited about this as well. And, I just feel like from the legislative perspective, maybe a little less hesitation when one group comes to them. Gee, I hope that doesn't step on the toes of the other group. But now you've got a unified voice.
Yeah, well, and you know this better than anybody. A lot of these legislators, whenever they have an issue or a specific policy they want to push, one of the first groups that they try to entice to come on board is the business community.
Sure.
Well, that really was in quotation marks several years ago. I mean, we all did generally the same thing, pushed in the general same direction, but we were different organizations. And now you can't say that.
Yeah.
There is one centralized statewide business organization that is the Chamber of Commerce that represents the National Association of Manufacturers.
Yep.
I mean, we are the one-stop shop, and so we can now fully say that we speak with that one voice.
Yeah. The economy, let's turn our attention to that. In the state of Mississippi, overall, John, doing well. The governor has certainly boasted about the significant wins in terms of landing new business investment into the state. That is, I think, transforming our state. What are you hearing from your members in the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, so on the manufacturing side, obviously, it's kind of a push and pull right now at the federal level. A lot of our manufacturers around the state are dealing with some uncertainty involving, tariffs and just general market conditions. But overall, again, still a lot of optimism. I think the incredible work the governor has done, and we're going to hear from him later today in the program. A lot of those new investments are going to accrue beyond just the sector that they specifically represent, which is largely data centers and AI infrastructure. But those things, again, that is going to push the next wave of innovation in manufacturing. So I think you're just going to see a broad impact with the direction we're going. And I think, again, that's going to accrue to everyone's benefit. Right now, there's still a lot of wait and see on some of the other uncertainty.
Jason Wong, of course, the legendary now CEO of NVIDIA, says that the data centers are really the manufacturing facilities of the future. They're manufacturing information and knowledge, essentially. So it's kind of a natural progression from more traditional manufacturing to this kind of new mode of manufacturing.
Well, and I think certainly in advanced manufacturing, but then look at other sectors. I mean, look at financial services and a lot of these other areas that you don't naturally think of as, that's impacted by AI, but it absolutely is. And that digital infrastructure that we're going to have right here in this state, that is going to go so far in opening up opportunities for ancillary development around those AI centers. So I'm really excited.
And it's exciting that Mississippi is a participant in this evolution, this revolution. We don't want to get left behind in this because I think the best is yet to come.
I agree. 100%.
Well, we got about a minute left, but you got a great lineup today, right?
We do, and I'm so excited. You mentioned it's the first ever Capital Connect event under this new umbrella of MSBA. We've got the governor coming to speak to us. I'm actually going to sit on stage with him and talk about some of these recent wins and about what he's looking to in the future. We've got Lieutenant Governor Hoseman and Speaker Jason White to kind of come and give their snapshot perspective of the legislative session, which is hit the ground running from its usual course. And then some of our expert practitioners with Bill Cork and Dr. Taylor, who you heard from earlier. It's going to be action-packed.
Yeah. Bill Cork, of course, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Development Authority. He's been pretty busy the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
And Courtney getting our workforce ready. So.
and that's the area that I think I'm most excited about is growing and developing that workforce, that muscle memory in that space. We got a lot of work to do, but we are moving in the right direction.
John, congratulations.
I appreciate it.
On the new Mississippi Business Alliance. John McKay, President and CEO of the Mississippi Business Alliance. Appreciate you coming on, John.
Thank you, John.
Always. Well, we're out of here today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're once again at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Mississippi Business Alliance's Capital Connect. Back again with you tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.